I pulled into my parents' driveway that Thanksgiving afternoon, and the pit in my stomach told me this was a mistake. Through the window, I could see my whole family gathered around the dining table. My father, Gerald, stood up the second I walked through the door. His face turned red as he pointed at me and shouted in front of everyone. Aunts, uncles, cousins, all watching. He called me a college dropout, uneducated trash who embarrassed the family. My mother, Patricia, joined in, comparing me to my brother Trevor, the golden child lawyer. I tried to speak. Gerald cut me off. "Get out, you lowlife," he shouted, actually pushing me toward the door. I looked at him calmly, picked up my keys, and said one word, "All right." Then I walked out. The drive from their suburban Ohio house to my place in Malibu took 3 hours. 3 hours of silence except for the hum of my Toyota Camry on the highway. People always looked at that car funny when I pulled up to my beach house. A $4 million property. And I drove a 6-year-old Camry. But that was kind of the point. I had dropped out of college at 20 years old. Not because I was failing. Not because I was lazy. I dropped out because I had an idea that wouldn't leave me alone. Cybersecurity software for small businesses. Everyone was targeting enterprise clients. But nobody was protecting the little guys who couldn't afford the big corporate solutions. So I started building it in my apartment, living on ramen and coffee for months. 8 years later, a major tech corporation acquired my company for $18 million. After taxes and paying out my early investors and employees, I walked away with about $15 million. I bought the Malibu house with cash 6 months ago, but I never told my family, never posted about it, never bragged. I wore normal clothes, drove my old car, lived quietly. My parents thought I was broke. They thought I was a failure because I didn't have a fancy degree hanging on my wall like Trevor did. They measured success by diplomas and titles, not by what you actually built or accomplished. I parked in my garage and walked through my house in the dark. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Pacific Ocean. The sound of waves crashing filled the silence. I stood there for a long time, watching the moonlight reflect off the water, trying to process what had just happened. My own father had physically pushed me out of his house, called me a lowlife in front of everyone, and my mother had stood there nodding, agreeing with every word. I slept terribly that night, kept replaying the scene, the look on my aunt's face, my cousin's uncomfortable silence, Trevor smirking in the corner like he'd won some kind of competition. When I woke up the next morning, my phone showed 37 missed calls, all from my mother. I scrolled through the voicemails. Not a single apology. Instead, she was furious that I had embarrassed them by walking out during Thanksgiving dinner. She demanded I come back immediately and apologize to my father for disrespecting him in his own home. I stared at my phone for a full minute. Then I blocked her number. For 3 days I heard nothing. I worked on some coding projects, took long walks on the beach, tried to clear my head. I kept telling myself I'd done the right thing, that I didn't need their approval, that I was 32 years old and didn't owe them anything. But the guilt sat in my chest like a stone. On day 4, my phone rang. Trevor. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. "Moses," he said. His voice was different, serious. "We need to talk." "I don't think we do," I replied. "Just listen for a minute. It's about Mom and Dad. What about them? They're in trouble. Financial trouble. Bad trouble." I didn't say anything. "The printing shop," Trevor continued. "It's been losing money for 2 years. They're 3 months behind on the mortgage. The bank is starting foreclosure proceedings. They're going to lose the house." My stomach dropped. "And you're calling me why?" "Because someone needs to help them. And I can't do it alone." "You're a junior partner at a law firm, Trevor. You make good money." He was quiet for a moment. "I'm maxed out, Moses. Law school debt is killing me, and I have expenses. The apartment in downtown Cincinnati isn't cheap. I need to look successful for the clients. It's an investment in my career. So you want me to bail them out? I'm asking you to chip in. 5,000, maybe 10. just to help them catch up on the mortgage, buy them some time. Why didn't they ask me themselves? You know, Dad, too proud. And after Thanksgiving, well, things are complicated. They kicked me out of their house, Trevor, called me trash. And now you want me to give them money. Family is family, Moses. We have to help each other. I laughed. It came out bitter. Where was that family loyalty when Dad was shoving me out the door? Where was it when Mom was comparing me to you like I was some kind of disappointment? Look, I get that you're upset. But this is bigger than Thanksgiving dinner. They could lose everything. Let me think about it, I said, and hung up. I sat on my deck, watching the sunset turn the ocean orange and gold. Part of me wanted to help. They were my parents, despite everything. But another part of me, the part that still felt the sting of my father's words, wanted them to figure it out themselves. I decided to wait, see what happened. Maybe they'd swallow their pride and actually ask me for help. Maybe they'd apologize first. I should have known better. 2 weeks passed. December arrived with cold winds and gray skies, even in California. I threw myself into work, trying not to think about my family. But they weren't going to let me forget. A Facebook notification popped up on my phone. Friend request from Diane Morrison. My aunt. My mother's sister. I hadn't spoken to her in probably 5 years. We weren't close. I accepted the request out of curiosity. Within 30 seconds, a message appeared. Moses, honey, it's Aunt Diane. I hope you're doing well. I heard about what happened at Thanksgiving, and I just wanted to reach out. Your mother is devastated. She cries every night. The situation with the house is getting worse, and I know you probably make decent money with your computer work. Could you find it in your heart to help your parents? Blood is thicker than water, sweetie. Family has to stick together. I stared at the message. Computer work. Like I was doing tech support at Best Buy. I didn't respond. Instead, I did what I should have done earlier. I looked into their financial situation myself. I had resources. I knew people. It took me 2 days to get a clear picture, and when I did, my jaw clenched so hard it hurt. Gerald had taken out a second mortgage on the house 5 years ago. $60,000. But it wasn't for the printing business. It was to pay for Trevor's final year of law school and to buy him a BMW as a graduation present. A $45,000 car for a kid who already had a job lined up. The printing shop was failing because my father refused to modernize. Digital printing had taken over the industry a decade ago, but Gerald stubbornly stuck with his old offset presses and traditional methods. Customers had been leaving for years. He was too proud to adapt, too set in his ways to learn new technology. They'd created their own problems. And now they expected me to fix them. Another Facebook message appeared. This one from a profile I didn't recognize. Concerned Neighbor, it was called. The message claimed to be from someone who lived on my parents' street, warning me that they were about to be evicted any day now, that they were in terrible shape, that I should come home immediately. I checked the profile. Created 3 days ago. No friends, no photos, except a stock image of an elderly woman. I read the message again, paying attention to the phrasing, the punctuation, the way certain words were emphasized. It was my mother. I knew her writing style. She'd created a fake account to manipulate me. I closed Facebook without responding. The next day, a FedEx envelope arrived at my house. Certified mail. I signed for it and opened it at my kitchen counter. Inside was a legal document. Multiple pages, professionally formatted, with Trevor's law firm's letterhead at the top. I started reading and my hands began to shake. Not from fear, from rage. It was titled, Family Loan Agreement and Demand for Repayment. Trevor had itemized every expense my parents had allegedly spent on me from birth to age 18. Food, clothing, shelter, school supplies, medical care, everything. He'd calculated it all out and arrived at a number. $50,000. The document stated that I owed this money to Gerald and Patricia Morrison for the cost of raising me. It cited some obscure legal theories about unjust enrichment and implied contracts. The final paragraph was a demand. Pay the $50,000 within 30 days, or face legal action. My brother was trying to bill me for my childhood. I called my attorney. Her name was Susan Chen, and she was a partner at one of the best firms in Los Angeles. I'd worked with her on the acquisition of my company. She was smart, ruthless, and didn't waste time. I scanned the document and emailed it to her. She called me back in 20 minutes. "Moses," she said, "I need you to know something before we discuss this. Are you sitting down?" "I'm sitting. This is the stupidest legal document I've seen in 15 years of practice. It has zero merit. Zero. Parents cannot bill their adult children for the cost of raising them. The law doesn't work that way. If your brother actually filed this in court, he'd be laughed out of the room and possibly sanctioned for filing a frivolous lawsuit. So I can ignore it. Legally, yes. But I'm concerned about something else. This shows a pattern of harassment and escalating aggression from your family. Combined with the fake Facebook account and the pressure campaign, we might want to consider protective measures. Like what? We can send a cease and desist letter. Make it clear that any further harassment will result in legal action. And you should document everything. Every call, every message, every contact. Keep records. "Do it," I said. "Send the letter." She paused. "Moses, I have to ask, are you okay? This is your family. I know what they are," I said quietly. "That's why I need the letter." After I hung up, I sat in my living room and tried to understand what had happened to my family. When had they become these people? Had they always been this way, and I just hadn't seen it? Or had something broken in them when I walked away from their expectations? My phone buzzed. Another Facebook message, this time from my mother's real account. "Moses, we need to talk. This has gone on long enough. You're tearing this family apart. Call me." I blocked her. Then I blocked Trevor. Then I blocked Aunt Diane and every other family member I could think of. For the first time since Thanksgiving, I felt like I could breathe, but it wouldn't last. December rolled into its second week. I was making progress on my new project, a startup focused on encrypted communication for businesses. I'd invested $2 million of my own money and assembled a team of 5 talented developers working remotely from different parts of the country. We were building something special, something that could be even bigger than my first company. Then the calls started coming. The first was from Marcus Thompson, an angel investor who'd put in $200,000. "Moses, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be straight with me. I got a call yesterday from someone claiming to be your mother. She said some concerning things about your character and stability. She said you abandoned your family and can't be trusted. What's going on?" My stomach turned to ice. I explained the situation as calmly as I could. The Thanksgiving incident, the financial manipulation, the fake legal document. Marcus listened quietly. "I believe you," he said finally. "But this is a problem. If your family is actively sabotaging your reputation, it could affect the business. Other investors might not be as understanding." He was right. And it got worse. Over the next 3 days, I received similar calls from 2 other investors and several business contacts. My mother and father had somehow obtained my professional contact information, probably through Trevor's legal connections. He had access to databases and records that normal people didn't. Patricia was calling investors and telling them I was unstable, unreliable, that I'd stolen money from my family years ago. Gerald was sending emails with similar claims, adding that I was vindictive and had a history of burning bridges. None of it was true, but the damage was real. 2 potential investors who'd been considering putting money into my startup pulled out completely. They didn't want the drama, couldn't risk associating with someone whose own family was publicly attacking them. I spent 3 full days doing damage control. Phone calls, emails, video meetings, explaining the situation over and over, providing evidence of my parents' lies. Most people were understanding once they heard the full story, but some remained skeptical. The doubt was planted. I was sitting at my desk late one night, exhausted from another round of explanations, when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Mr. Morrison, this is Jennifer Wu from First National Bank. I'm calling about a credit application we received in your name. I didn't apply for any credit, I said immediately. That's what we suspected. The application was for a $75,000 personal loan. But several details didn't match our records for you, and the signature looked off. We flagged it as potentially fraudulent. My hands clenched into fists. Can you tell me where the application originated? It was submitted online, but the contact information listed a Trevor Morrison as a co-applicant and reference. Same last name as you. We thought it was suspicious. That's my brother, I said quietly. And yes, it's fraud. I hung up and immediately called Susan. She answered on the second ring despite it being nearly 11 at night. We're filing a police report, she said after I explained. Tonight. This is identity theft, Moses. It's a felony. He's my brother. He's a criminal. And he's using his legal knowledge to target you in ways most people couldn't. That makes it worse, not better. We're pursuing this fully. The police report was filed by midnight. 2 days later, detectives went to Trevor's apartment in Cincinnati with a warrant. They arrested him at 7 in the morning. He posted bail within hours. My father sold his truck to pay for it. That afternoon my phone rang. I'd gotten a new number, but somehow my mother had found it. How could you? She screamed the second I answered. How could you do this to your own brother? He was just trying to help. He thought you'd want to help the family, so he took the initiative. And you had him arrested like some common criminal. He committed identity theft, Mom. He tried to take out a $75,000 loan in my name without my permission. That's a crime. You're destroying this family. You've always been selfish, but this is too much. Your father wants nothing to do with you. Do you hear me? Nothing. Then why are you calling? Because someone has to make you see reason. Drop the charges, Moses. Make this right. Be the bigger person. I'm not dropping anything, I said, and hung up. Within an hour, the Facebook posts started. My mother created a long public post on her page, tagging every family member and friend she had. She wrote about how her oldest son had abandoned his family in their time of need, how he'd had his own brother arrested over a simple misunderstanding, how he was cruel and vindictive. The post painted me as the villain in a story where they were innocent victims. People who didn't know the truth commented with sympathy and outrage on my behalf. Friends from their church, old neighbors, distant relatives. The narrative spread. I was the bad son, the heartless one, the one who turned his back on family. I didn't respond publicly. Susan advised against it. Don't engage, she said. It'll only make things worse. Let the legal process handle this. But watching those posts spread, seeing my name dragged through the mud by people who didn't know a single true fact about the situation, it hurt in ways I hadn't expected. My new startup was struggling. I was distracted, stressed, unable to focus the way I needed to. My team could sense something was wrong. One of my developers, Carson Bradley, called me for a one-on-one meeting. Moses, what's going on? He asked. You've been off lately. Is everything okay with the project? It's not the project, I said. It's personal stuff. Family stuff. I'm handling it. He nodded slowly. Look, if you need to take some time, we understand. But we need you at full capacity. We've got a product launch in 8 weeks. I know. I'll be there. But I wasn't sure I could keep that promise. January arrived with cold rain and gray skies. 6 weeks had passed since Thanksgiving. Trevor's criminal case was moving through the court system slowly. Gerald and Patricia's house was officially in foreclosure proceedings. They had 60 days before eviction, and things were about to get so much worse. I was working from home one Tuesday afternoon when my doorbell rang. I checked the security camera feed on my phone. A woman stood at my door, middle-aged, gray hair, wearing a heavy coat. My mother. I didn't open the door. Instead, I watched through the camera as she rang the bell again, then again. Then she started banging on the door with her fist. "Moses, I know you're in there. Open this door. I'm your mother. You owe me at least a conversation. Open the door, right now." Her voice was shrill, desperate. I called the police and kept watching the feed. She screamed for 20 minutes, shouting about how ungrateful I was, how she'd given me life, and I was repaying her with cruelty, how she was going to stand there until I faced her like a man. Neighbors started coming out of their houses, watching from a distance. The police arrived and spoke with her calmly. She cried and claimed she was just trying to talk to her son, that I was keeping her from seeing me for no reason. They explained that I had the right to refuse to see her, that she needed to leave the property. She argued, but eventually got in her car and drove away. The officer came to my door. I opened it. "Mr. Morrison," he said, "I'd recommend getting a restraining order if this continues." She was pretty agitated. "I'm working on it," I said. 2 nights later, at 10:15, my security system alarm went off. Motion detected at the front door. I pulled up the camera feed, and my heart sank. My father, drunk, swaying on his feet, pounding on the door so hard I thought he might break it. "Moses, you coward. Come out here. Face me like a man. You're killing your mother. You hear me. She's having chest pains. The doctor says it's stress. You're killing her." I called 911 again. He kept shouting, threatening to break down the door, saying I'd turned into someone he didn't recognize, saying I was a disgrace to the family name. The police arrived faster this time. My address was probably flagged in their system now. They found my father belligerent and uncooperative. When they tried to escort him away, he shoved one of the officers. They arrested him. Drunk and disorderly conduct. Assault on an officer. Trespassing. He spent the night in jail. I didn't sleep. I sat in my living room with all the lights on, watching the security feeds, jumping at every sound. The next morning, Susan called me with news that made everything exponentially worse. "Moses, I just got off the phone with a detective from the cybercrime unit. They've been investigating Trevor's case and found something concerning. Trevor hired a private investigator to dig up information on you. But the PI crossed legal lines. He's been accessing your private emails through hacking. They've got evidence of it." My blood went cold. "What emails?" "Your personal account and your business account. They've been reading your correspondence for at least 3 weeks. Maybe longer. What are they looking for?" "Anything they can use against you. Tax issues, business impropriety, personal scandals, anything to discredit you or create leverage." I felt sick. My private conversations, my business plans, everything exposed. "There's more," Susan continued. "The detective found text messages between Trevor and your father. They were discussing ways to, quote, teach you a lesson you won't forget and make you pay for what you've done to this family. The language suggests they might have been planning something physical. You think they'd hurt me. I think they're desperate and not thinking clearly. The detective thinks so too. We need to get restraining orders. All 3 of them. Your mother, father, and brother. We're filing today." The restraining orders were approved within 48 hours. Gerald, Patricia, and Trevor Morrison were legally prohibited from contacting me or coming within 500 feet of me or my property. Violation would result in immediate arrest. My mother's response was to post on Facebook again. This time, she wrote a long emotional post about how her son had gotten cruel restraining orders against his own parents for just wanting to talk to him. She claimed they were being persecuted, that they'd done nothing wrong, that I'd become a monster. Then she did something that shocked me. She started a GoFundMe page. The title was, "Help a Family Destroyed by Their Son's Cruelty." The description painted them as victims. An elderly couple facing eviction because their oldest son refused to help, despite having the means to do so. A younger son facing false criminal charges because he tried to help his family. Parents who just wanted to reconcile with their child, but were being kept away by legal orders. It was all lies. But it was effective lies. The campaign raised $12,000 in 5 days. People who didn't know the real story donated. Left comments about what a terrible son I was. shared the campaign with their networks. I watched it happen in real time and felt powerless to stop it. My business partner Carson called me on a Friday evening. "Moses, we need to talk. Can I come by? Just tell me over the phone. I'm quitting the project." I was silent for a long moment. "Why?" "Your brother contacted me 3 weeks ago, offered me $30,000 to sabotage the project from the inside, introduce bugs, steal code, delay timelines." I refused immediately. Then he increased the offer to $50,000. I still refused. "But Moses, I can't work with you anymore. This family drama is too much. I'm uncomfortable. I'm out." Carson hung up before I could respond. I'd just lost one of my most critical team members 3 weeks before our scheduled product launch. The launch would have to be delayed. The investors would panic. Some might pull their funding. I sat at my kitchen table and put my head in my hands. My family had managed to invade every part of my life. My home, my business, my reputation, my peace of mind. I was spending more on legal fees than I'd ever imagined. Over $200,000 so far. My new business was hanging by a thread. I couldn't sleep, couldn't focus, couldn't think straight. For the first time since this all started, I wondered if I should just pay them off. Give them whatever they wanted. Make it stop. But I knew that wouldn't work. People like this, once you gave in, they'd just keep coming back for more. They'd learn that threatening and manipulating worked. It would never end. I was trapped. Late January was the darkest period of my life. Not because of money, not because of business problems, but because my own family had become dangerous and there was no clear way out. The product launch was delayed until late March. 2 of my 5 investors were getting nervous, sending concerned emails about the timeline, and asking pointed questions about my ability to lead under pressure. One investor, a venture capital firm out of San Francisco, threatened to pull their $1 million investment if we missed the new deadline. I was burning through cash, legal fees, living expenses, keeping the business afloat while we rebuilt the team to replace Carson. My $15 million nest egg was still healthy, but I was watching it drain faster than I'd ever planned. Then came the call that changed everything. 3 a.m. My phone vibrating on the nightstand pulled me from shallow sleep. Unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something made me answer. "Mr. Morrison, this is Officer David Park, with Malibu Police Department. We responded to an alarm at your residence about 40 minutes ago." "I'm at my residence," I said, confused. "The alarm didn't go off." "Are you at 2741 Pacific Coast Highway?" "That's my address." "Sir, I need you to listen carefully. Someone attempted to break into your home tonight while you were sleeping. Your alarm system activated and scared them off, but they dropped some items while fleeing. We found a crowbar, footprints in your garden, and a wallet. The wallet belongs to Gerald Morrison. Is that name familiar to you?" I couldn't breathe. "That's my father. I need you to come down to the station to make a statement. And sir, you might want to check your security footage." I drove to the police station in a daze. It was 4:30 in the morning, and the streets were empty. The officer showed me the evidence. My father's wallet, his driver's license staring up at me from inside a clear plastic bag. "We arrested him 2 hours ago at his apartment," Officer Park said. "He admitted to the attempted break-in when we questioned him. Said he was going to take what he was owed from your house. He believed you had cash hidden somewhere. He's been charged with attempted burglary. That's a felony, Mr. Morrison." I sat in the police station and tried to process it. My father had tried to rob me, had been willing to break into my house in the middle of the night. What would have happened if I'd woken up? If I'd confronted him, would he have hurt me? The answer terrified me. The next day, while I was dealing with police statements and updating my security system, I got a call from Aunt Diane. Her voice was panicked. "Moses, your mother is in the hospital. She had some kind of attack, chest pains, trouble breathing. The doctors are running tests. They think it might be her heart, but they're saying it could be severe anxiety. This is your fault. If she dies, it's on you." She hung up before I could respond. I sat in my car in the police station parking lot and stared at my phone. My mother was in the hospital. And despite everything, despite all the manipulation and lies and cruelty, I felt guilty. Susan helped me get temporary permission to visit the hospital despite the restraining order. I drove to Ohio that afternoon, a 6-hour drive that gave me too much time to think. The hospital was small, outdated, with fluorescent lights that flickered in the hallways. I found my mother's room on the 3rd floor. She looked small in the hospital bed, pale, older than I remembered. She opened her eyes when I walked in. For a moment, something like hope crossed her face. Then it hardened. "You came," she said. "I came. Your father is in jail because of you. Dad tried to break into my house. That's why he's in jail." She looked away. "He wouldn't have done that if you'd just helped us. If you'd been reasonable, you forced him to that point." I pulled a chair next to the bed and sat down. "Mom, do you hear yourself? Dad committed a felony. He tried to rob me, and you're blaming me for it. We're losing everything, Moses. The house, the business, our dignity. And you have so much. You could fix this with a phone call, but you won't. You'd rather watch us suffer. You called me uneducated trash. You kicked me out on Thanksgiving. You've spent 2 months sabotaging my business and my reputation. You created a fake GoFundMe to scam people out of money. Trevor tried to steal my identity. And you want me to help you." She started crying. Soft, broken sobs. I wanted to feel sympathy. Part of me did, but mostly I felt numb. "You'll never take responsibility, will you?" I said quietly. "You'll never admit that you created this situation, that you pushed me away, that you treated me like I was worthless. You'll never say you're sorry. Fix this," she whispered. "Please, just fix this. Give us what we need. I can't lose the house. I can't lose everything." I stood up. "I can't give you what you need, Mom, because what you need isn't money. It's perspective. It's accountability. And I can't give you that. You have to find it yourself." I left her room and walked out of the hospital. I cried in my car for 20 minutes before I could drive. The next day, while I was back in California, trying to put my life back together, Trevor made one final, desperate play. He showed up at my business office in Los Angeles. I wasn't there, but 3 of my team members were, working late on code. Trevor walked in through the unlocked front door, furious and aggressive. "Where's Moses?" he demanded. My lead developer, a woman named Rachel Hunt, stood up. "He's not here, and you need to leave. Now." Trevor ignored her. He went desk to desk, confronting each person, telling them I was a liar, that I'd destroyed my family, that they shouldn't trust me, that the business would fail, because I was unstable. Rachel recorded the whole thing on her phone. "I'm calling the police," she told him. "Call them," Trevor said. "I don't care anymore. Tell Moses he's finished. Tell him I'm going to destroy everything he's built. He took everything from me. My career, my reputation, my family. I'm going to return the favor." The police arrived within minutes. Trevor was arrested for violating the restraining order and for intimidation. His bail was revoked this time because it was his second violation. He was held in county jail. Rachel sent me the video that night. I watched Trevor's face contorted with rage, watched him threaten my team, and I realized something that should have been obvious all along. My family wasn't going to stop. They couldn't stop. They'd convinced themselves they were the victims, that I was the villain, and they'd keep escalating until something terrible happened. I drove back to Malibu and sat on my deck, overlooking the ocean. The house that was supposed to be my sanctuary felt violated, unsafe. Every shadow looked like a threat. Every sound made me jump. I'd hit rock bottom. My business was barely surviving. My family had become my enemies. I'd spent over $200,000 on legal fees. I was emotionally exhausted, physically drained, and mentally at my breaking point. I thought about the night of Thanksgiving. My father shouting, "Get out, you lowlife." How humiliated I'd felt. How angry. And I realized I'd been playing defense this entire time. Reacting, protecting, trying to minimize damage. It was time to go on offense. The first week of February, I made a decision that would change everything. I was done hiding. Done explaining myself privately. Done letting my family control the narrative. I scheduled a meeting with Susan and a crisis management specialist named Marcus Reed. Marcus had worked with executives, politicians, and public figures dealing with reputation attacks. He was expensive, but brilliant. We met at my house on a Wednesday morning. I laid out everything. Every lie, every manipulation, every crime, every piece of evidence I had. Marcus listened carefully, taking notes. When I finished, he sat back and said, "You've been fighting this the wrong way. You're trying to contain it. But containment doesn't work when the other side has no shame and no boundaries. You need to flip the script. Go public. Control the narrative yourself." "Won't that make things worse?" I asked. "It'll make things different," he said. "Right now, your family is telling their story unchallenged. They're painting you as the villain to anyone who'll listen. You need to show people the truth. All of it. With evidence." Over the next 3 days, we built a website. Simple, clean, professional. We titled it, "The Truth About My Family." I wrote a detailed timeline of everything that had happened, starting with Thanksgiving dinner and going through every single incident. But I didn't editorialize. I didn't call them names or make emotional appeals. I just presented facts. I included documentation, screenshots of the fake Facebook messages, copies of the fraudulent loan document Trevor had sent, the police report for the identity theft, the police report for the attempted burglary, audio recordings of my mother's screaming voicemails, court documents showing Trevor's arrests, screenshots of the GoFundMe page with its lies, bank records showing the second mortgage they'd taken out to fund Trevor's lifestyle. Everything. At the bottom, I wrote one paragraph. "I'm sharing this not for revenge, but for truth. My family has spent months publicly attacking my character while privately committing crimes against me. They've told people I'm cruel and heartless for not helping them financially. What they haven't told people is that I offered multiple times to help them find resources, to connect them with financial counseling, to assist in legitimate ways. What they wanted wasn't help. It was unconditional money, with no accountability. When I didn't provide that, they escalated to harassment, fraud, and violence. I hope by sharing this, other people dealing with toxic family members will feel less alone. You're not crazy. You're not heartless. Sometimes, protecting yourself is the only option." We launched the website on a Friday evening. I shared it on my previously dormant social media accounts with one sentence: "I've been silent long enough." Here's what really happened. By Saturday morning, it had been shared 8,000 times. By Sunday evening, 25,000 times. By Monday, it was trending on social media. Local news outlets picked it up, then regional, then national. The story spread like wildfire. Successful tech entrepreneur, tormented by greedy family. Silicon Valley millionaire, exposes family's criminal harassment. Son, shares evidence of parents' alleged abuse and fraud. The comments section on my mother's original GoFundMe page transformed overnight. People who donated demanded refunds. People posted angry messages about being scammed. GoFundMe's fraud detection team opened an investigation and froze the account within 48 hours. Eventually, they shut it down and refunded all the donations. My phone exploded with messages, supporters, other people sharing similar stories about toxic families, media requests for interviews. I declined most of them, but I did one interview with a respected journalist who focused on family dynamics and financial abuse. The article she wrote was fair, thorough, and devastating for my parents' narrative. She interviewed legal experts who confirmed that the loan document Trevor had sent was legally meaningless. She spoke with cybersecurity experts about the email hacking. She reviewed all the evidence I'd provided and confirmed its authenticity. public opinion shifted dramatically. The few people who'd been defending my family online went silent. My parents' friends started distancing themselves. Comments on their social media turned hostile. But the real consequences were just beginning. Trevor's law firm had seen the website within hours of it launching. By Monday morning, they'd fired him. The managing partners released a statement saying they had zero tolerance for unethical behavior and that Trevor Morrison was no longer associated with the firm. The State Bar Association opened a formal investigation into Trevor's conduct, the identity theft charge, the attempted bribery of Carson, the intimidation of my employees. Each one was a violation of professional ethics. His law license was suspended pending the investigation. His legal career was effectively over. Gerald's criminal case moved forward. The attempted burglary charge, combined with his previous arrest for assaulting an officer and trespassing, meant the prosecutors weren't interested in a plea deal. At 63 years old, facing a felony conviction, he was looking at potential prison time. His public defender eventually negotiated a suspended sentence with 5 years of probation, but only because of his age and Patricia's health situation. He avoided prison, but had a permanent felony record. His printing business had already closed. Now, he was a felon. His prospects for future employment were essentially zero. The house went to foreclosure auction. It sold for less than they owed. They had no equity, no money. They moved into a small 2-bedroom apartment in a rough part of town. But I wasn't done ensuring the truth reached everyone who mattered. I personally contacted every investor and business partner my parents had lied to. I sent them links to the website and the news coverage. I provided context and evidence. Most responded with apologies and renewed support. My investors who'd been nervous about the project delays changed their tune. One called me directly to say he was inspired by how I'd handled an impossible situation with integrity. The venture capital firm that had threatened to pull funding increased their investment instead. Carson, the developer who'd quit, reached out with an apology. He said seeing the full picture made him realize he'd been manipulated by Trevor. He asked if there was any way he could rejoin the team. I told him we'd moved on with a new developer, but I appreciated the apology. 2 weeks after the website launched, I received a phone call from an unknown Ohio number. I'd stopped blocking calls because most of them were now supportive messages. Moses. It was my mother's voice. Quiet, broken. This is Mom. I'm calling from a borrowed phone because I know you blocked my number. I didn't say anything. I saw the website. I read everything. I read what people are saying about us, about me. She paused, and I heard her crying softly. I'm sorry, Moses. I'm so sorry. I was wrong. About everything. I let pride and fear turn me into someone I don't recognize. I didn't appreciate you. I didn't see your success because I was too busy judging you by standards that don't matter. I treated you terribly, and you didn't deserve any of it. I sat down. This wasn't the manipulative crying I'd heard before. This sounded different, real. Your father is destroyed, she continued. He knows what he did. He's ashamed. Trevor is bitter and won't talk to us. He blames everyone but himself. But your father and I, we've been talking. Really talking for the first time in years. And we've been going to counseling. A free clinic. We can't afford a real therapist. But we're trying. I still didn't speak. I don't expect you to forgive me, she said. I understand if you never want to see me again. But I needed you to know I'm sorry. Truly sorry. You were right about everything. And I'm proud of you, Moses. I should have said that years ago. I'm proud of who you became despite us, not because of us. She hung up. I sat holding the phone for a long time, unsure what to feel. 3 days later, a handwritten letter arrived at my house. My father's shaky handwriting. 2 pages. He took full responsibility for everything. Acknowledged his failures as a father. Admitted he'd been threatened by my success because it highlighted his own failures. Said he was ashamed of what he'd become and what he'd done to me. He didn't ask for forgiveness or reconciliation, just said he was sorry and understood if I hated him. I read the letter 3 times. Part of me wanted to believe them. Part of me couldn't trust it. Too much damage had been done. Trevor, predictably, sent no apology. I heard through family channels that he'd moved to Florida, was working some kind of sales job, still bitter and angry, still blaming me for ruining his life. I realized Trevor would probably never change. Some people can't. They're too invested in their victimhood, too committed to blaming others. But my parents, maybe they could change. Maybe hitting rock bottom had forced them to look at themselves honestly for the first time. I didn't know if I could ever let them back into my life. But for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe without the weight of their attacks crushing my chest. By May, 6 months after that terrible Thanksgiving dinner, my life had found a new equilibrium. The encrypted communications app launched in late March, 2 months behind schedule but strong. Within the first month, we signed contracts with 12 mid-sized businesses. By month 3, we had 40 clients, and were getting serious interest from some major corporations. The app was doing exactly what I'd hoped it would do, solving a real problem for businesses that couldn't afford enterprise-level solutions. My startup was now valued at $8 million. The investors who'd stuck with me through the chaos were going to see excellent returns. I was back on track, building something meaningful, proving once again that I could create value from nothing but code and determination. My personal life was healing too. I'd been seeing a therapist twice a week since February. Dr. Sarah Williams specialized in family trauma and narcissistic abuse. She helped me understand that what I'd experienced wasn't just a family disagreement. It was systematic manipulation, financial abuse, and ultimately violence. She taught me about boundaries, how to recognize manipulation, how to protect myself without feeling guilty about it, how to understand that you can love people from a distance while refusing to let them hurt you. I'd started dating again. Her name was Harper Mitchell, and she was a marine biologist working on coral reef restoration projects. We'd met at a charity event in April. She was brilliant, funny, passionate about her work, and completely unimpressed by money. When I told her my whole story on our 3rd date, expecting judgment or discomfort, she just nodded and said her family had issues too. "Everyone's got something," she'd said. "What matters is how you handle it." We'd been seeing each other for 6 weeks now. It was early, but it felt right. She understood when I needed space, didn't push me to move faster than I was ready for, respected my boundaries the way I respected hers. One evening in late May, I was sitting on my deck, watching the sunset when my phone buzzed. A notification that I had physical mail. I walked to my mailbox and found a thick envelope with no return address. Ohio postmark. Inside was a handwritten letter, 10 pages. My mother's handwriting, neater than usual, like she'd written carefully. I sat back down on the deck and started reading. She wrote about the last 6 months. How she and my father had lost everything material but found something more important: perspective. They'd been attending a support group for people dealing with financial crisis and family estrangement. They'd been working with a counselor at a community mental health center. She wrote about how she'd spent years measuring worth by the wrong metrics: degrees, titles, traditional markers of success. How she'd been so focused on what I didn't have that she couldn't see what I'd built. How she'd let her own insecurities and fears poison her relationship with her son. She took full responsibility. No excuses, no blame shifting, just honest accountability. She wrote that she understood I might never trust her again, that she'd burned bridges that couldn't be rebuilt. But she wanted me to know she was genuinely changing, not to win me back, but because she couldn't live with who she'd become. At the end, she said she was proud of me. Not for the money, but for the integrity I'd shown throughout the nightmare they'd put me through. That I'd stayed true to myself when it would have been easier to compromise. That I'd set boundaries even when it hurt. She didn't ask for anything. No reconciliation, no money, no relationship. Just wanted me to know she finally understood. I read the letter twice, then set it aside and watched the sun sink into the Pacific. 2 days later, another letter arrived. My father's handwriting. Shorter, more direct, but equally genuine. He wrote about his shame, about how he'd defined himself by his business, and when that failed, he'd felt like a failure as a man. How he'd taken that out on me, because my success made him confront his own shortcomings. How he'd been a coward and a bully. He said he was working a job at a hardware store. Minimum wage. At 63 years old, starting over from nothing. But he was sober now. Had quit drinking completely. Was trying to become someone he could respect again. Like Patricia, he didn't ask for anything. Just wanted me to know he was sorry and was trying to do better. I sat with both letters for several days, thinking, processing, talking it through with Dr. Williams. Finally, I made a decision. I wrote back to my mother. Not a long letter, just a few paragraphs. I acknowledged her apology, told her I appreciated the honesty and the accountability. I said I was willing to consider having a supervised lunch meeting in 6 months if she continued with therapy and respected my boundaries. No promises beyond that. No guarantee of a restored relationship, just a possibility of beginning to rebuild something from the ashes. I told her I wasn't ready to respond to my father yet. Maybe someday, but not now. The attempted break-in had damaged something fundamental in my ability to feel safe around him. I needed more time. I sent the letter and felt lighter than I had in months. I didn't write to Trevor at all. I'd heard he was struggling in Florida, had posted some bitter things about me on social media before giving up and going quiet. Part of me felt sad for him, but I recognized that Trevor had made his choices. He'd had multiple opportunities to take accountability and chose victimhood instead. Some people can't be helped because they don't want to change. A week after I sent the letter, I was having dinner with Harper at a restaurant overlooking the beach. She'd just gotten back from a research trip to Hawaii and was telling me about the work her team was doing to restore damaged reefs. "Your family stuff," she said between bites of grilled fish. "Have you figured out what you're going to do?" "I think so. I'm going to let my mom try to prove she's changed. 6 months of continued therapy. Then maybe we meet for lunch. Public place. Supervised. Baby steps. And your dad? I don't know yet. Maybe eventually. Or maybe never. I'm okay with not knowing." She nodded. "That's healthy. Not forcing closure." "I learned something through all this," I said. "Something I wish I'd known earlier." "What's that?" "Your worth isn't determined by people who refuse to see it." My parents called me uneducated trash because they measured success by diplomas and traditional careers. They couldn't see that I'd built something real through hard work and intelligence. They were so busy comparing me to what they expected that they missed who I actually was. Harper reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "Their loss." "Yeah," I said. "It was." We finished dinner and walked along the beach as the sun set. The waves crashed against the shore in their eternal rhythm. The sky turned orange and pink and purple. I thought about that Thanksgiving night. My father shouting, "Get out, you lowlife." Me picking up my keys and saying, "All right." Walking out without arguing or defending myself. That single word, "all right," had been more powerful than any argument I could have made. It was the moment I chose myself. The moment I decided I didn't need their approval or validation, that I was enough on my own. The months that followed had been hell. But they'd also clarified something important. Family isn't an excuse for abuse. Blood relation doesn't give people the right to manipulate, attack, or destroy you. Love shouldn't require you to set yourself on fire to keep others warm. I'd learned about boundaries, about self-protection, about the difference between forgiveness and reconciliation. You can forgive people for your own peace without letting them back into your life. You can wish people well from a distance. You can hope they change while protecting yourself in case they don't. I also learned something about success. Real success isn't about money or status or proving people wrong. It's about building a life you're proud of, surrounding yourself with people who respect you, and having the courage to walk away from toxicity even when it's hard. My parents had taught me a valuable lesson, though not the one they intended. They taught me that sometimes the people who should support you the most will be the ones who hurt you the worst. And when that happens, you have to be strong enough to choose yourself. 6 months later, I did meet my mother for lunch. A small cafe in neutral territory, with my therapist at a nearby table. Patricia looked older, thinner, but there was something different in her eyes. Humility, maybe, or exhaustion. We talked for 90 minutes. She didn't make excuses, didn't try to minimize what had happened, just listened when I spoke and answered honestly when I asked questions. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't reconciliation. But it was a beginning. I saw her 3 more times over the next year. Always supervised. Always boundaried. Slowly, carefully. We built something new. Not the mother-son relationship we'd had before. That was gone forever. But maybe something healthier. Something based on honesty instead of obligation. My father sent letters occasionally. I read them but didn't respond. Maybe someday I'd be ready. Maybe I wouldn't. I gave myself permission to not know. Trevor never apologized. Last I heard, he was in Arizona, had changed careers entirely, was working construction. Still angry. Still blaming everyone else for his failures. I wished him well from a distance, but kept him completely out of my life. My business continued to grow. By the end of the 2nd year, we were valued at $22 million. I was building something that mattered, something that helped people, something I was genuinely proud of. Harper and I moved in together after 18 months of dating. She brought her rescue dog, a mutt named Barnacle, who loved the beach as much as we did. We talked about the future carefully, both of us aware of our own damage and committed to building something healthy. Now, sitting on my deck 3 years after that terrible Thanksgiving, I watch the sunset and feel something I didn't think I'd feel again. Peace. My phone buzzes. A text from Harper. She's running late from work, but will be home for dinner in an hour. I smile and text back. I start preparing food in the kitchen, Barnacle at my feet hoping for scraps. The house feels safe now. The violation of that night when my father tried to break in has faded. I've replaced the memory with better ones. Dinners with friends. Quiet mornings with coffee. Harper laughing at something on her phone. I built this life myself. On my own terms. With my own hands and mind and effort. Nobody gave it to me. Nobody can take it away. That's what my parents never understood. Success isn't about status or approval. It's about building something you're proud of and having the courage to protect it. They called me uneducated trash. Told me to get out. And I said all right and didn't argue. That simple acceptance, that refusal to fight for their approval, was the most liberating moment of my life. Because I didn't need them to see my worth. I knew my worth. And that made all the difference. So let me ask you something. Have you ever had to walk away from people you loved because they couldn't see your value? Have you ever been called worthless by the people who should have supported you most? How did you handle it? How did you rebuild? I'd love to hear your story in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, if it helped you feel less alone in your own struggle with toxic family members, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Share this with someone who might need to hear it. Sometimes we all need a reminder that choosing yourself isn't selfish. It's survival. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it gave you something to think about. Maybe some courage to set your own boundaries. Maybe some validation that you're not crazy for protecting yourself. Remember, your worth isn't determined by people who refuse to see it. You are enough, exactly as you are. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is say all right and walk away. Take care of yourselves out there. Until next time.